Hey, good morning, folks. It is Tuesday, October 20th. Last night I had the completeness of a dream that I've had over the last several days. It started about the 17th or 18th of October. Um, this one got my attention, especially since we're so close to the election. The second part is a little bit more contentious. I've sent it to two of my friends to look at. Once again, I'm not going to try to interpret what these dreams are. I'm just telling you what I had. I felt the urgency to get them out this morning. So here's what it is. I saw what looked like an atlas with an interstate lines all over the nation. Like if you're looking down at an atlas and you see the interstate lines going all over from state to state, and they were flashing with bits of information going all over. It looked like a data map. It appeared to be like a network of sorts that was obviously overworked. And some of the data points were not flashing. Some were. There were places, cities, smaller places. You had flashing, you had things that were moving, you had data points that were moving almost like traffic. But I could see there were small workers in white lab coats, and they were trying to work on the areas where the data was not flashing. I saw hammers, I saw guys with laptops, I saw people who were trying to work out the minute details of why this point wasn't flashing or why this point was flashing too hard or too fast. And I could see the areas heating up. I heard concerns that the circuits were going to go hot. That's what they said. Those circuits are going to go hot, and if they go hot, they will fry. And so that was the language I was hearing. And I said they're going to go hot and get fried if they could not slow the system down. And suddenly from the West Coast to the Midwest, and it started Washington State, Oregon, California, there were these big flashes. And then I saw smoke from the data points that seemed to represent those bigger cities. And they stopped on the western side of the Mississippi. So it started all the way on the West Coast, went to the West Coast, or to the western edge of the Mississippi River. I was not seeing explosions. I was not seeing bombs. I was seeing like systems shutting down because they were so hot. And as the data points, the flashing got closer to the bigger place, the bigger cities, it got faster and faster and faster. And almost in the background in my dream, I could hear that like a warning sign that happens in a laboratory or something like that. And the lab coat guys, they were working feverishly to fix these, but they couldn't get the system back online. So instead, they were trying to I could hear them saying, reroute that system, go around this city. I heard them say several times, go around Reno, go around Reno, go around Reno, get through Vegas, go here, go there. And they were trying to reroute the system to bring whatever the system was back to life. But as they were doing it and rerouting it, the bigger cities were still sending up smoke clouds. It was like you would see in the old Western movies, where the cloud, like someone had like a Native American Indian with a blanket or something going over it. It was almost like the data points were sending up information about what had happened there. I did not see Native American Indians. I did not see anything like that, or people doing the smoke cloud. But it looked as if there was something interrupting the smoke as it was coming up, almost like it was sending out a signal of information. And then there was a countdown clock. There was no countdown clock at first, but now on the other side of the Mississippi River, there was a countdown clock, and it was counting down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And when it reached 1, the eastern side of the Midwest started having the same flash points, and the cities there began to smoke, and the circuits were fried. And I could hear those guys yelling, the system's going up, it's going up, it's going up. And then they would scream, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down. Circuits are going to fry, the circuits are going to fry, and then there would be these flash points, and you would see the smoke. But when the flashes reached Philadelphia, and this was specifically the city that I saw where all this was happening, was Philadelphia, the network line that was red, it looked like a fire hose that was pulsating with like LED lights inside of it. But when it got to Philadelphia, the network line was red, flashing, went into where the Liberty Bell was sitting. It went underneath the Liberty Bell. And when the pressure began to build up, and it was like watching water in a fire hose, it just filled it up, filled it up, filled it up, came underneath the Liberty Bell. And when it got underneath the Liberty Bell, it blew up, and the Liberty Bell went flying straight up in the air. And it split in half. The bell split in the middle of the air. It threw the Liberty Bell up into the air like this, and then the Liberty Bell split in half, and it fell in such a way that the round area landed on the ground, and it was rotating. It was like going back and forth, just wobbling back and forth. It didn't land on the flat edge of the bell. It had been cracked in half. Once again, and the crack was where it had split through the whole thing. So the crack became what split the whole thing in half. It stopped rocking after what seemed like in the dream, several minutes of just rocking back and forth like this. And then the Liberty Bell began to melt. It was almost as if a huge heat source, or from the data point, that fire hose was so hot that it was melting now. So the Liberty Bell began to melt, and like heat was being applied. And then I saw that the lines of data were all headed towards Washington, D.C. from there. And it looked like the city had these octopus arms, and they were trying to fight to disconnect the data lines. And what I assumed was they were trying to keep the explosive power of the system shutting down from hitting Washington, D.C. And so these octopus arms came out, and they were trying to disconnect the systems. And then, but there was one that just kept flashing, kept building up pulses. It seemed bigger and more extreme, carrying more data, more information than the other lines I'd seen in the interstate area before. Though there were people wearing suits and ties, this was business attire, I saw justice. It was not necessarily Supreme Court justice. I did not see faces, but I saw judges. I saw people in suit and tie, business attire, professional business, and they were trying to basically pull this line out of Washington, D.C. to keep it from blowing up or whatever. They were trying to pull this line away from the city. Without avail, to no avail. This thing kept going. It finally blew up because all the connections went to the Capitol building. That's exactly where it was going, to the Capitol building. It finally blew up, and the building literally cracked in half. So I'd seen the Liberty Bell crack in half, and now I saw the Capitol building crack in half. And it issues this huge smoke cloud. And as the smoke goes into the air, it creates a word. And that word was discovery. Discovery was the word that was in the air. So you got the halls of Congress cracked in half. You've got the smoke just billowing up, and it's spelling this word out in the sky, which is the word discovery. It's not like smoke that's dissipating or clouds. It stays there in the sky. And there are people that they're running now. And they're not running from the explosion. They're running from the word they see in the sky, which was discovery. Then the scene changed, and I saw a rotunda of the Capitol. And there was a closed casket in the middle of the rotunda. And the sign on the casket stated that inside was the Democratic candidate for the office of president. And there was a calendar hanging above that casket, and it had the date specifically. Clearly, I saw it. One of the first times I've seen an actual date, not on a calendar, but on the paper, it said December 17th. That date was clearly spelled out. And I'm not going to say someone's going to die on the 17th. I don't know what to say about it. I'm just telling you what I saw. That's all I'm doing. But it said, the calendar hanging above the casket, the sign had December 17th circled. Now, one of the sons of the Democratic presidential candidate was there, but not the other. And his wife was there, and she was looking down at the ground. Nobody was crying. Nobody was crying. There were also many congressmen and senators from both parties in the room, and they all had their heads down, looking at the floor, and they were shaking them just violently, just making fists and shaking their heads violently. Also, all their shoes were not on their feet. The shoes were piled, like when you walk in the rotunda area. All the shoes were piled there. So all these congressmen, all these senators were basically barefooted. There was a couple of the females that had socks or stockings on their feet, almost like a pantyhose type stocking on their feet. Everybody else was totally barefoot. And then a prominent senator stood up and demanded to see the body. And that's when the sergeant at arms rushed up, and he said, with several Marines, by the way, and he said, there will be no viewing of the body today or ever again. There will be no viewing of the body today or ever again. And the senator sat down and collected himself. Then he walked over to that pile of shoes, and he dug through all these shoes until he found his pair. He put them on, and he sat there for a minute, looked around. You could tell he was getting angry, and he rushed out of the room. And he was running like at a sprinter's pace to get out of there. Smoke was still rising outside, and he's running towards the White House with both fists clenched like this. And his mouth is moving, and I did not hear the words, but I could see that he was cursing. Not like swearing, like cussing. He was cursing the White House. He was cursing the leadership. He was cursing the leadership. I don't want to put words out there because I did not hear what he was saying, but he was obviously cursing He was upset with something that was going on. He was intent on making a change. And he stopped for a moment near the Washington Monument. And he looked back. And when you look back, there was about 20 to 25 other people who were following him. Men and women. I can't tell you parties. I can't tell you who they were. I did not see these faces. The runner, yes, I knew who it was. I'm not going to say, but nonetheless, 20, 25 people are following after him, but they're holding their shoes in their hand while they walked. He told them to hurry, but they just continued their very steady, almost cautious pace to get to him. And then he sneers at them, and he sneers at the White House, and he begins sprinting towards the White House as fast as he can. And at this time, I saw the man I'd seen in the previous dreams. He was standing in the place where the president gives the State of the Union address. He was standing in the halls of Congress right there where everybody sees the president give the State of the Union address every single year. And he tapped the microphone. It was one of those real thin, it wasn't a Shure SM58. It was a real thin, very professional microphone that was there. He tapped the microphone 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And then he stated in a very loud voice, "A house divided against itself shall not stand." And he emphasized the word shall. He said it like this: "A house divided against itself shall not stand." And the emphasis was on the word shall. And then he pushed the microphone down, just put his hand and pushed the microphone all the way down to the podium. And he walked to the door at the rear of the room. And on that wall, there was a panel of probably 25 or 30 light switches, just your flip switch. And one by one, he flipped them down. One by one. Until every light in Congress, in that building, in that room, went out. And that was the end of the dream. So I had this dream over the course of the last 3 or 4 nights. I've not slept since about 3 o'clock. I had it at about 2:15, I think around 2:15 to 2:30. Woke up with an incredible urgency to get this out there. Once again, I'm not going to say all the things I think it means. I think we're about to see a whole lot revealed in Congress. I think the next 2 weeks we're going to see a whole lot more revealed about some of our leaders on both sides. But whatever I saw with the data points, there are explosive things that are happening. That was not cities blowing up. That was information. That was data points. That was systems that were crashing. And so I'm sharing this, asking you to pray about it, pray for wisdom, understanding. Every time I put a dream out there, I usually get, and this is no joke, I usually get 300 to 400 people will try to interpret and tell me what the dream is. And that's okay. I can't look at all of them, and I don't look at all of them. But all I'm telling you is I think, we're 2 weeks today from the election. And there's a whole lot going on, definitely in this dream. And the dreams I've had lately have been a lot more political, a lot more situations. I'm also not saying that Joe Biden's going to die on December 17th. I'm just telling you I saw a closed casket. I saw a sign that said this is the Democratic president for president, or the Democratic candidate for president. I saw his wife and one of the sons, not 2. And that's all I'm saying. We are seeing some of the things I've seen in the dreams that are happening, and I'm not trying to just clarify that and say, hey, I'm doing these. I keep telling these dreams so that there's some value added to what I've said or done. I'm just trying to be obedient and share what I've seen. You can do with them what you want, but I am trying to warn the nation. I'm trying to warn the church that I believe there's some pretty explosive things that are coming, and that we better be where we need to be. Number one, with the Lord, and secondly, be prepared with our families to protect, to watch, to lead, to guide, and to speak up right now. I think this is going to be the most important election and the most contentious election in not just modern history, but in the history of this nation. And I believe I think I'm qualified to say that based on the news, the reports of things that are happening, the number of attorneys on both sides. So take this, do with it what you want. But this is the dream that I've had last night. This is the dream that will be on my mind for the next several hours, the next several days going into the election. And so please pray. Because the spokesman that was standing where the president gives the State of the Union said, "A house divided against itself shall not stand." And if we've ever been divided as a nation, it is today. I don't think we have to go back to the Civil War to find the kind of divisions that we have like we have today. And the division is a very, very spiritual one. It's the difference between right and wrong, good and evil. That's what we see out there. It's not black and white. It's not. That's not the biggest issue that we have in this country. There's a spiritual issue that is deeply underneath the foundation of this country, and things are about to become explosive and violent and issue oriented. But I think also what I'll just say this. I think God's about to punch the November calendar. The more I pray about, the more I see. I think God's about to say enough is enough in this nation, and we'll see how the rest of my dreams play out. But I'm just telling you what I saw today, and ask you to pray about it. Ask you to make sure you're right with the Lord. Ask you to share your faith with as many people as you can. Get out and vote. Get out and make a difference. But also prepare for the things that could happen in the next several weeks. We are 2 weeks today from the election, and things are not slowing down by any means. So take this and do with it what you will. Thanks for listening.